office up to the point of being funded is paid for by the state. And fortunately, the SBIR that you have just won, there is a fee attached, a fee meaning a profit, and you can pay back the state $1,500 out of that fee or profit, $5,000. And then along with that, we have tools and templates and all kinds of email assistance and just a variety of ways that we can help you out throughout the process. There are 7 of us at BBC. We each have our own little unique, area of focus and interest, from commercialization, writing commercialization plans, developing those, working with the National Science Foundation. We have an expert in the Department of Defense that works primarily with our Department of Defense clients, and then National Institutes of Health, we have an expert there as well. I work with clients on budgets, as I mentioned, budgets and the numbers and how to put together a very specific plan and how you tie your plan to the actual proposed work. And then I work with clients post-award on how to manage those funds. Working with the government, dollars is a little bit different than your typical GAAP accounting kind of accounting afterwards. So there's some special needs there.
Yeah, so that was good. So any of the other programs we've talked about, are there any costs associated with them that people might want to know about? Anything you can think of?
If you receive a BAF grant or Business Accelerator grant, there is up to the first $15,000. It's a $300 fee that you have to pay to the organization that sponsors it, whether us or it's Lakeshore Advantage also does them, or Merit. If it's above $15,000, it's 10% of the grant.
Okay. So, but it's only on the FCOM, only if they get the grant.
Right.
Are you gonna pay that? And then.
And it cannot be included as part of the grant funds.
There is one other state program that goes along with the SBIR program and our program, and that's the Emerging Technologies Fund. That's a matching program where the state of Michigan has supplied the money, for the strategic fund has provided money, and it's managed by the SBTVC. This Emerging Technology Fund then matches your Phase 1 grant, 1-to-1 basically, or $25,000 against a Phase 1, and then matching funds also then on the Phase 2. So excellent program. The only requirement there is that you submit your application to the ETF before you submit your application for the SBIR.
Right. So any other obscure funds, local, state, anything you guys can think of that we haven't hit that people may have interest in that are doing early stage stuff? Anything? Because you're going to find these all work together. So interesting, you know. So the guy that filed for the SBIR, he was going for a Phase 2, and so we worked together and got letters of support from the Michigan Accelerator Fund 1, which is a venture fund, Grand Angels, and Start Garden, all wrote letters of support saying if he hits his goals in his Phase 2, that we would be interested in bringing private capital to bear in Phase 3. So that's how these things, there are things, you know, and again, pre-seed, your match.
You can actually use the SBIR as your pre-seed match too. So if you go get SBIR funds, and let's say you get $250,000, you can go ask the pre-seed through us to match that. So that because the SBIR is limited on what you can do, so it provides you commercial resources. So and the state really wants us to go after the SBIRs. It's their way of approaching.
And that one's a little different, right? When you do an SBIR match, it's structured as a loan.
It's structured as a loan, 8%, I believe the rates are running through it right now, but it still goes through the pre-seed program. So, but again, you would get your SBIR. Knowing that your SBIR is coming in, before you get money, you would apply for the pre-seed match prior to that.
Right. So is this making sense, or is this all a blur of 3- and 4-letter acronyms that don't make any sense? You know, is this making sense? Is it helping? Anything you guys have as general questions? Because if not, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up this session, and these people can stick around a little bit. Yeah, Amanda. No, that's a great one. In terms of some of the bigger business plan competitions that go on around the state that are coming from all kinds of, as a matter of fact, I think we just had one, we have one coming up, or the deadline for one was
There's one, yeah,
yesterday or
there's
something.
green lights next week.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I know we got some teams going after. We've actually had students that have gotten over $25,000 through various competitions. But the biggest one is the ACE not ACE competition, but the Accelerate Michigan competition.
GLEQ.
GLEQ.
And both. There's
Yeah.
two.
Right.
So the competition, which is in the fall, which is the Accelerate Michigan competition, is actually a competitive competition, and the top winner gets $500,000 of that. But there's multiple categories where people are getting $25,000 in that regards. And actually, there's a student category where the top student gets $25,000. Then there's programs like GLEQ. We also have local competitions. We have clean energy competitions that we've had teams go into in that regards. And actually, I've had people link in. Some of them are student competitions, but I've actually had people who have a business idea link in with students as part of the team and actually go into the competitions. But yeah, that's it's a source of funding that people should be accessing. And more importantly, it does get you ready for a pitch. That's the whole process.
Right.
If you can win these competitions, most of the time your ideas are being and there is actually the Michigan Growth Capital Symposium, which is coming up in May. Again, it's
That's what I was thinking of.
yeah. Now that's fairly significant. All the venture capital firms from most of the surrounding areas are there. You have to apply to get into it. We look for targeted companies to send to it. It's a 10-minute pitch. There's not necessarily a prize on that one, but you're putting yourself in front of some major investors and all the surrounding areas. Each year it gets larger because the venture capital firms are realizing not only you get good companies coming out of Michigan, but the values of them are lower than what you have to pay on the coast.
So there are new things popping up all the time. So Greenlight, this is MSU over in East Lansing. This is the first time they've ever done this, never existed before, totally new competition where there's money. So this is where participating in the general ecosystem in West Michigan is important. The best way to know about this kind of stuff is to be hanging out with other people that are starting things and doing things. And so whether that's coming to happy hours or update nights at Start Garden or different events, or an event going on across the street. This afternoon that Aaron's I think hosting over at the factory with Craig Hall, and there's a couple other people. I mean, there is stuff going on all the time, and as much as we'd like to think there's one central place, what I'm excited to say is there's new stuff and stuff that's really grassroots that's springing up all the time, to the point that we can't necessarily keep track of it on one nice neat calendar. So even if you don't need a specific thing, from SB, just staying in touch with the people at the SBTDC or CEI or GROW or these different places, it is really important just so that you know what's going on. So
when we sit down with small companies, I describe sort of your funding plan as every company has their own funding jigsaw puzzle, and it's different.
Yep.
And raising capital is often being at the right time, the right place, with the right person, and with someone who has the money at that time. So we'll sit down and say, this company is a high-tech company, there's student involved, let's get into that competition, the SBIR, or it needs a microloan to get there. And you keep adding on to these processes, and over time you can look and say, by the way, this company's proven itself, now it can go after the angels. Once it gets to the angels, if you need it, you can go to the venture capital.
Correct.
We've been very successful in the last couple of years taking companies through this process and constantly putting those pieces together to get them the funding that they need, whether it be non-diluting equity, whether it be equity, whether it be loans. But there's capital resources, and particularly in this state, that are better than any of the other states around.
Right. And some of it, and all of these people talk. I mean, this is the part you need to understand as an entrepreneur. Kevin holds this occasional event over at GVSU called Venture Betting, where I get together with Kevin and I don't know a bunch of people that are involved in this ecosystem. Normally where we don't cross over, other venture funds, different stuff, and we all come to the table and share one or two things that we're working on with the rest of the group. And what you start to find is that the way I work is if I hear about an idea, 2-3 times over a course of a short period of time from different people, it starts to pique your interest, and these things start to create momentum. So getting out and connecting, whether it's with, you connect with Jeff at Smart Zone or us or different people, we all talk. And I think that's the way a lot of it works. I mean, there is the process of the financials and the business plans and all of that, but there's also the relational component of it. And, I don't want to call it hype, but there is this process that happens behind the scenes that the entrepreneurs don't see, where we're all comparing notes and talking. So, all the more reason to sit down, connect, have conversations. The worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to learn more about your business, or you're going to uncover some new thing, or, everybody sitting here has literally seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of businesses. And I know everybody thinks that their business is unique and there's something special that nobody understands. I hate to break it, for the most part, business at its core is 80% the same. I mean, you've got your nuances, but we know what works in deals and what doesn't. So, getting in front of these people that have seen so much stuff, they can really help you refine your offering. Regardless, we've seen things that when they, the ideas that when they first start, they really stink. And some of them are around for a couple years. But the entrepreneurs refine them and move them along and apply for things through the process. And even if you don't get the money, what we hear time and time again was the process of going through the application so helped me in terms of thinking through my business that, bummed that I didn't get the money, but I definitely advanced my business in the process. So that's, part of connecting with, with this group and these people. If there's any questions, I'll take them real quick. Yeah, one more. Yeah.
I know you guys kind of, the programs that you're talking about have left out kind of the lifestyles. They don't apply to a lot of these programs.
Yeah.
Are there early stage programs like that for the lifestyle side of a business? Is it more of a traditional seeking out a loan type thing?
Yeah, you guys.
I think Bill's is more.
You're as close as we get in this town to somebody that's. To be honest, historically these were. There used to be institutions called banks that loan money to people, but they vaporized. So now we're looking for, maybe you can share a little bit about, where you fit in that landscape.
Sure. We do, a good portion of our loans are to lifestyle businesses, but really to your point, it is still a loan. But some of the more stable deals that I think we've actually added to our portfolio have been someone who, in the term that I just came across in the last couple of days, it's patching. I have this job, I make this money, but it's not quite enough for me to do what I need to do. So I'm going to start this business on the side and use it to augment my income. Well, that's actually kind of a really nice deal, especially even for us with our program being as early as it is, because there's that secondary income that can offset the risk of the business. And a lot of times those assets that may be a part of that patching business can be used in a future endeavor as well. So if that first business doesn't take off like you want it to or everyone expects it to, it doesn't mean it's a failure, it just means you repurpose those assets for a different endeavor later on. But yeah, we do a lot with lifestyle businesses. That's actually where a lot of our the assistance that we provide are to business owners or small businesses that operate mostly out of their house, or they have a really small office somewhere that they just choose to pay rent for to operate outside of their home.
Maybe I can add to that. Banks are in the business to make loans, right? So they're a good source for startups. Or not. Generally, they're very risk adverse. So if you're pre-revenue, it's tough, but not impossible. It all depends on the story you tell them, the plan you put together, and who you talk to. One of my favorite stories is a lady came to me about 4 years ago. She was raising $850,000 to start a preschool. The school district that she lived in didn't have a preschool. She'd been turned down by 9 banks. I said, come on, you're kidding me, 9 banks? She pulled out the list, and I looked at her. I could see why she was turned down. She was talking to some of the community banks that weren't lending at the time because they were in trouble. Scratched them off. She had raised $350,000, friends and family and tools, so she only needed $500,000. But the big bank she was talking to, at $500,000 level, you're talking to a branch manager. Branch managers would rather open savings accounts, checking accounts, stuff like that. They have to put the application together, send it to a central underwriting group. It never gets to meet you or see you. That's a very sterile environment. If you don't meet their score, you're done. So the community banks that usually have more sensitivity weren't lending. The big banks, she wasn't talking to the right people. I looked at her business plan. It said startup preschool. She did not include a resume, so I asked her, what have you done in the past that would make you successful at this? Well, I currently run a preschool that I started, but I don't own it. It belongs to a church. I went to the church. They had unused classrooms that I wanted to rent, but they said they couldn't rent them to me for liability reasons. But they wanted a preschool, so they said, hey, you start it, you can have the funds from it, the profits, you hire, you fire, whatever, but we have to own it. 3 years later, she has a waiting list of 80 people, 100 students, maxed out the classrooms, and the church would not expand for her. So was it a startup or an expansion of an existing business? I had to relabel the business plan just as that. The word startup really scares a lot of people. So we pulled that out of there. We changed the revenue projections to make them very modest, to be just above what the bank wants to see. And we got a list of the parents, the kids on the waiting list, and 80 letters from existing people. We took that back to the banks, 3 of them that turned them down. And in the end, I had 2 banks vying to do the deal. Today, she's got 180 students. Life is good.
When was that?
That was 4 years ago. She was telling the wrong story to the wrong people. So if you've got experience or closely related experience, if you've got some equity to put into the deal, if you can show that you've got a good credit score, you might get a chance. So it's not totally impossible.
Yeah. We have banks that are partners with Start Garden that work with teams. And again, bankers get to see a lot of businesses. So, you know, going through that process isn't necessarily bad. And you know, then again, the same thing you should always be asking with any source of funding when you talk to them, even if they turn you down, well, turn around back to them and say, okay, well, what do I need to do in order for you to fund me? And that's true of whether it's venture capital or any of these things. Because then you know, right? I mean, you know, the only shame in all of this is you get a no and you don't know why, or you don't know what you need to do next. Other than that, it's just learning, right? So don't think that just because a bank's not likely that it's not worth talking to them. The banking environment will change. It has to. You know, it is a tough road right now, especially, I mean, anything pre-revenue. I mean, you shouldn't be looking to a bank for something pre-revenue anyhow, because that's just not how they work. I mean, the old joke is, you know, banks are institutions that loan money to people that don't need it. But that's kind of true. I mean, you know, it's nice to have. You may need it to grow, but you're going to need some asset base to go to banks. But Max.
Crowdfunding may soon be available for the last time. That's a good part.
Yeah. Yep. Crowdfunding. Anybody here done a Kickstarter campaign?
My brother did a big one.
Yeah. Did it work for him?
Yeah, 15,000.
What was his project?
It was a craft beer board game.
Okay, craft beer board game. 15,000.
Yep.
Great. Awesome. So yeah, so we're starting to see it like on the, you know, on the pre-purchase project level, but there are some changes afoot here that are taking time that may allow you eventually to, you know, to socially raise funds. It really can't be done now. It'll probably first start to happen with, you guys probably don't know the difference, but with accredited investors. So there is this notion of, you know, your average person is not an accredited investor because you need to have a certain level of net worth and or annual income to qualify as an accredited investor. But there are definitely, you know, there's a lot of, you know, AngelList. There's different sites out there now that are allowing you to post ideas that you can try. They're kind of crowdfunding, you know, but you're still coming from the normal community. But yeah, keep your eye on that one and see what happens.
I like that's a great point, Max, about the crowdfunding though. Because basically you're doing a pre-sale of your product.
Right.
And not only does it give you some revenue, but it validates your product.
Validation is the bigger
That's
deal.
really, but then you can go raise money based
Yeah.
on that. So we'll do that as some products and just for that
Yeah.
whole purpose. Purpose.
And we have at StartCard, some people have used their $5,000 of their experiments to do Kickstarter campaigns. So that we're successful. We think for some products that makes a lot of sense because again, it's all about validation. The biggest question being, does anybody care about you? And if you can answer that question by and will they part with their dollars in support of it? So that's a great one. All right. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up the session right now so that the folks here can catch some individual time. If you have specific questions regarding your business or something you're dealing with, you can connect with them. Again, thanks for visiting Start Garden. All of our events and activities and things are at startgarden.com, and would encourage you to follow with the ideas that are being posted every week. Please comment, help the people that are that have their ideas, help them refine them through that process. But just encourage you to participate in that and in the other events in the ecosystem. Round of applause for the panel. Thanks for taking time to come out, everybody. Have a good day.